I'm not a photographer, so I won't talk about technical things or how to take great photographs. I assume you can all take great photographs. I started the organisation because I collect photography. I like photography as art. My appreciation of photography, that's where it comes from. So I'm going to talk about photography, then I'm going to talk about Sony World Photography Awards. Now, just obviously, there's different types of photography. You've got sort of wonderful art photography. You obviously have documentary photography, and of course, commercial photography. So we don't, as an organisation, we don't really deal a lot with documentary, true press documentary photography. Obviously, we don't really deal with commercial photography. We focus really on the art side of photography. So if you have a burning passion to go out there and photograph the war fields of the world, I'm probably not the best person to talk to. But if we want to talk about art and we talk about photography, hopefully I can shed some light on that. The challenge that I think photography has is that obviously there's lots of photography, right? So as I get quite, not bored would be the wrong thing to say. I'm being recorded, so I'm not bored. So I get asked a lot about, oh, everyone's a photographer. You know, we all have cameras, we all have phones, therefore everyone's a photographer. And I completely disagree with that. You know, I mean, I send text messages, but I'm not an author. You know, so it's such a different concept. And the problem photography has is that this one word covers these huge extremes. It covers snaps on social media, and it also covers fine art photography. So you have this one word that covers this massive array. And I think that's a real problem. And I think it's a challenge for you as photographers, because you're trying to justify or explain your photography, but people go, oh, I can do that. That's easy, I can do it. And they just can't. But it's their appreciation of photography that needs to change. As an organisation, we have two main goals. One, which is to elevate the appreciation of photography as art. So we do a lot of work around the world. We run art fairs. We have 7 art fairs that we run. We do a lot of work focusing on promoting photography as an art medium and getting people to appreciate photography as art. On the other side, we also promote photographers. So you as photographers, we spend a lot of time shouting about photographers. Everything that we do, just to be clear, it's free for photographers. So I'm not selling you anything, okay? So you don't have to pay me on the way out. But the idea is that it's so hard for photographers to make a living in photography. How do you become famous? How do you take your step up? And that's really sort of our focus here and what I'm going to really try and talk about. But this doesn't help, this sort of concept that everyone's a photographer, okay? So that's why we spend a lot of energy and effort talking about photography as art and really elevating that perception of photography as art. So that's what we're sort of here to sort of talk through. So if we ignore social media and we ignore selfies, which are like the death of everything, and we just focus on sort of photography. And why do I like photography? So for many reasons, actually. I think it's incredibly understandable. So I'm assuming you're photographers, and I'm assuming you have an ambition to maybe sell your photography or take your photography to the next stage. Now, in order to do that, you need the people looking at it to understand it, to get it. And I really think photography is that. I think photography has so much future. It's the art medium of the future. It is so diverse, it is so versatile, it's an incredible medium. But also, really importantly, it's really understandable for the public. They can really engage with it. You don't need an art degree to understand a photograph, yeah? So I'm sure I've just used these as an example. So like the image on the left, I'm sure you've all seen, it's a Jackson Pollock, very famous painting. I mean, I don't really understand that, if I'm being honest. And the image on the right is an Ormo Gigli picture taken in 1960. I don't know if anyone has seen this picture before, or you know. It's a very famous photograph, actually. And Ormo Gigli is the photographer who took it. It's a lovely story behind it. So he lives in New York, And he woke up one morning and he looked out his window and he saw this brownstone building that was being prepared to be demolished. And he was like, oh, that's such a shame, you know? It's like, that's such a cool building. It would look amazing with all these, and he had this concept of models and blah. So he went down to see the guy who was in charge of demolishing the building. And he said, wait, you're like, yo, dude, or whatever they say in America, you know? Don't demolish it. I'd love to take a picture of it, and explained his like crazy idea. And the guy said, I'm sorry, but it's being demolished tomorrow. He said, okay, can I do it in the morning? And he said, okay, you can do it in the morning under one condition, that you include my wife. So this lady here is actually the guy in charge of the demolition's wife. And this is actually Orman Jigli's wife. But wonderful, right? It's a just beautiful photograph, really nicely shot. You don't need the story behind it, actually. It's understandable just in itself. You look at that, it's beautiful. Beautiful picture, lovely, beautifully composed, obviously, X, Y, Z. You know, wonderful classic car. It's not classic because it was taken in the 1960s. That was like a modern car at the time. But a really beautiful, beautiful picture. And in fact, we sold this picture in Shanghai a couple of years ago just for $52,000. But Orman Jigli is a really famous artist, right? So you need to build yourself up as an artist and as a brand. But the point is that photography is understandable. The collector that bought it didn't have an art degree. In fact, he wasn't even a collector. He just, as a wealthy man, wanted a picture probably for his fifth home and bought it because he understood it. It's beautiful. And it's very different to a painting. So I think that photography has this incredible opportunity for the future. And considering you're all studying photography to do things for the future, it's a positive thing for you, yeah? Outside of it being understandable, I think photography is also super accessible, yeah? So, and by accessible I mean price. It is very, very different. Now this is a Wilhelm de Koenig which sold for $300 million. It's a painting, obviously. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know many people with a spare $300 million, okay? I mean, it would be nice, but there's not many, right? Now, on the left is a Robert Mapplethorpe. I don't know if you know how much you know of your sort of photography, but Robert Mapplethorpe's probably one of the most collectible photographers in the world. And that's currently priced at $56,000. We sold a piece in September, Robert Mapplethorpe. It was actually the single lily, and it was sold for $125,000. So, but he's super collectible, yeah, as in Robert Mapplethorpe. But what you've got is photography is really accessible financially. You know, you've probably all heard of Cindy Sherman. So Cindy Sherman is amazing, right? She's just amazing. But you can buy a Cindy Sherman for $15,000. It's not a lot of money. $15,000 is a lot of money, but in terms of collecting art, $15,000 isn't a much. So you can buy a highly collectible artist in photography sense for $15,000. $15,000 in paintings, I think it's probably my daughter will give you that, you know. So, I mean, there's not a lot that you can get for $15,000. That has investment value, okay? So I think photography is understandable, but also exceptionally accessible. The other thing I like about photography is it's really, really versatile, and it has huge appeal to it, you know. I'm going to try and not talk about this for long, but I can talk about it for hours. So if I go longer than like 5 minutes, just someone wave at me, okay? So do people know this? Does anyone know this work? Okay, so there's an artist called Taryn Simon. Now she is an artist. If you said to her she's a photographer, she'd probably kill you. But she only works in photography, right? But she is an artist. Now she did a series called Birds of the West Indies, and it's all iconic James Bond photographs. So you've got like the Aston Martin, you've got the Bond girls, so you've got all these amazing photographs. And there's 97 images in the series. And there's only 3 editions. I'm assuming you all know about editions and you know how photography sells. There's only 3 editions. It's $1 million an edition, okay? There's one of them is owned by Michael Wilson. So Michael Wilson is probably Europe's biggest photography collector. He's also the producer of James Bond films. That's why he bought one. The second edition is held at the Jeu de Paume in Paris, and the third edition actually we showed in Shanghai. And actually, we showed it all in one line, so it looks like a film strip, obviously because it's like Bond. But there's some lovely little stories about it. I'm going to talk a bit later about detail. He obviously went to the Bond girls to photograph the Bond girls, and Ursula Andress was one. And she said, no, I don't want to be photographed. I don't know why, whatever. But so imagine yourself as the artist, okay? You have this vision of you want to do this body of work, and you're going to photograph these ladies. And one of them turns around and says no. So what do? Well, it just doesn't matter, right? You just go on to the next one. No, that's not what Taryn Simon did. There's another picture here. It's the same frame, and it says Ursula Andress, but the frame's empty because she didn't want to be photographed. And the book, you can buy the book, and the page is empty, and it just says Ursula Andress. It's really clever, yeah, really, really clever. It's the detail, because she wants to tell the story, okay? And it's such a wonderful thing, but it's really accessible to people, and people understand it. And the final thing I'll say in terms of the detail is it's called Birds of the West Indies. And the reason it's called Birds of the West Indies is that Ian Fleming, who wrote James Bond, he loved ornithology, yeah? So he was a massive bird watcher, and he had a house in Trinidad. And so he used to look at all the birds and blah, blah, blah. He had an encyclopedia which referenced all the birds. It was called Birds of the West Indies, which he would then look at a yellow thing flying and go, oh, that's a so-and-so, Anyway, so when he was writing his novels, he was trying to think of, I need a name for my spy character, but it had to be a really boring name, something like really dull, And he was thinking about it, and then he looked at his book, his encyclopedia, and the author of the encyclopedia was called James Bond. And that's why it's James Bond. So the point is that Taryn Simon, she didn't just go there and photograph some James Bond icons. The depth that she went to in terms of the whole body of work, the name of it, how she printed it, how she curates it, how she wants you to show it, the number in the series, everything was done, in such detail. But all of it is super appealing. It goes back to that thing where you don't need an art history degree to understand this body of work. It's just a really straightforward thing. So I think photography has that mass appeal to really show anything that you want to show. But I do, as I said earlier, I do think it's the medium of the future, because I think that the young people coming through, it's the medium that they read every day, they digest every day. And the technology that's out there is amazing, and it pushes the boundaries of you as artists. I saw some images recently, they were shot, that the lighting was done with drones. So they'd lit this subject with drones to then capture it. I mean, it's amazing, just because therefore it was a whole different perspective on what you could see. So technology is really pushing boundaries in the hands of amazing artists. It can really create some amazing things. So I do think it is the medium of the future. But the problem with that is there's more photographers now than ever before. So it's all great, right? So photography is great. It has this huge opportunity. When you guys graduate from an amazing school like Motivarte, you're going to go out there in the world, create amazing things. It's accessible, it's understandable, it's versatile, all these super, super things. But how do you become famous? How do you make the step up? A lot of photographers I meet, they forget that they're brands, that they themselves are the brand, that people buy into that. Publishers want to sell your book. They need to know that they can sell your book. Galleries want to represent you, but they need to know they can sell the artwork. The photographer is the brand. So how do you become famous? How do you do that, right? That's what the Sony World Photography Awards is for. And I seriously, seriously mean that. The Sony World Photography Awards are the center of everything that we do as an organization. All the art fairs we run, everything we do, we show photography. The Sony World Photography Awards, we focus entirely on the photographer. And it's free, right? Remember the free part, okay? So last year, we generated 1.9 million press articles for our winners. It changes their career. You go from not being heard of to something completely else. And it's absolutely there for you. So it's about engaging with the Sony World Photography Awards. And that's what we want you to do, because these platforms are there. There's many awards out there. I'm not precious. I don't own them all, obviously, but enter them. My recommendation would be don't enter any that are paying, that you have to pay to enter. There's too many awards out there in the world. You don't have to choose the ones that you pay for. Okay? Get the ones that give you exposure. We are by far the biggest in the world. So it's easy for me to say I don't mind and I've got no, but I really don't mind. But choose the competitions out there to enter. One thing I've found in Latin America, and I'm going to get towards the door as I say this in case you shout at me, is that I find that Latin American photographers that are so humble, which is lovely, but with that humbleness is a shyness sometimes. You've got to step forward, You've got to submit. If you submit and you win, some amazing things could potentially happen. If you don't win, we don't tell anyone, We don't say, hey, this guy entered, but he didn't win. I mean, that's not what we do, right? We only promote the people that want. What's there to lose? There's nothing to lose, okay? Now, we have different, I've got a clicker, hold on, I can work this. Yay, look at that, check. Sorry, it's technical, I love it. We have 4 awards, 4 different competitions, professional and open. The difference between them is that professional is you enter on a series, a body of work, and open you enter a single image. So if you've got a good body of work, enter professional, and if you've got a strong single image, enter open. You can't enter both. Okay, that's the one thing, you can't enter both. We also have youth, but that's for under 19. Looking at maybe the man of the bid, you're not under 19, so you can't enter youth. Maybe there's a few others, so youth is for people under 19, right? And then students is for the universities, okay? But you have to enter through the universities. And that's really a really important thing from our point of view, about helping universities also engage, and us engaging the universities. So they're the competitions, but you can enter the student program. Also, you can enter professional independently. So that's not an issue. Now, so it's free, there's nothing to lose, go for it, be bold. And new for this year, I've had a crazy week. I've been to I've been to seven cities in 10 days, so I'm seriously jet lagged. So I got the name wrong, okay? So we won't ignore my error on the name. So we've launched the Latin America Professional Award, and that's new for this year. And the reason is, so if you enter professional competition, you'll say you're from Argentina, you're automatically in the Latin American Professional Award. It's got nothing to do with focus, okay? But you're automatically in there. And this is the only place we're doing it. We're not doing it in any other part of the world. And the reason is, quite simply, I know for a fact there are some amazing Latin American photographers. I see their work through the year, we talk to people, we engage, we know the work is there. But we're trying to get you to be bolder and to enter. So what we're going to do is we've launched this program, and we're going to choose, and luckily we have these amazing partners in Sony that are helping facilitate this whole process. So what we can do is we can select the best Latin work, and we will show that in an exhibition in Latin America, either Mexico or potentially Argentina, and to really highlight the best Latin work. And then we will publish that work and publicize that work around the world. So the idea is that you may win the overall award, but also you might get the best in Latin America. So we're trying to make it even more accessible for Latin American photography. I see a lot of Latin American photography, and actually I think it's quite nuanced. I think there's a sort of documentary style within the contemporary work. I think it's really, really interesting. But a lot of the Latin American work is only seen in Latin America. And I travel, unfortunately, too much. My wife thinks I live on British Airways. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to get that work seen around the world. I want more Latin American work seen in Europe. I want more Latin American work seen in Asia. Now, Jonas and Motivarte do incredible things around the world, and it's trying to get that. It's trying to get opportunities for Latin American photographers to be seen around the world. So that's kind of what this is about. So recapping, I love photography, clearly biased. photography's got a great opportunity, and you as students of photography have a great opportunity to take the next step. And it's programs like this that can seriously, seriously help. But then you've got to win it. Okay, so fine, done, right? Just win, easy. Now, I'll give you the caveat that obviously I'm not a photographer, so I couldn't win it. I see a lot of good photography. Obviously, I see a lot of good photography a year. So my respect for you as photographers is huge, because I can't do it. I can buy something and stick it on my wall, but I definitely can't produce great photography. And I think that's the thing, I have so much respect for what you as photographers achieve. That's why I know you need an opportunity to show your work more globally.